Okay, so earlier I mentioned that if you die without a will, the terminology is called intestate, which then means that the rules of intestacy apply to your estate. I did say I'd go through that, so you've got a slightly better understanding of what this is and what it means. So I've written the rules out, and I'll just talk you through these briefly so you've got an idea. Okay, so intestacy. The deceased has died. So if the deceased only had a spouse or a civil partner, then the spouse or the civil partner receive the estate. If the deceased has a surviving spouse, civil partner, plus children, grandchildren or great-grandchildren, then the spouse or civil partner get the first £250,000 of the estate, all the personal belongings of the deceased, along with any other belongings, and then anything in excess of the 250,000, they receive half of that amount as well. The children then get the rest. Which means, as an example, if you had an estate worth £350,000, the first 250,000 goes to the deceased's spouse or civil partner. The remaining 100,000, the civil partner or spouse are entitled to 50,000 in that, which is half of that 100,000, and the remaining 50,000 is then split equally among the surviving children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Where joint property comes into play, you could have spouse, civil partners or cohabitors. If it's owned jointly, then the surviving spouse, civil partner or cohabitor would receive the property. If they own that as tenants in common, which means you each own half of the house equally, then the surviving partners receive their half of the property, but the rest of the deceased then falls into the remaining estate, and these rules thereafter apply. So, point 4, where there's children and there's no spouse or civil partner, then the children simply inherit the estate. It's as simple as that. The whole lot goes equally to the kids. If there's a children with surviving spouse or civil partner, refers back to the previous rule where the children would only get half of the remaining estate after the civil partner has taken their proportion, as pointed out in Rule 2. Children, point to consider where trust planning can become relevant. The children only receive their share of the estate if they are older than 18 or have married or formed a civil partnership before 18. That's the only part they get. They get that. Alternatively, the rest are looked after by that money is looked after by trustees. If we've got grandchildren or great-grandchildren, which is all that's left, then they only receive that if the parent or the grandparent have already predeceased them, and they will then get their proportion of their partner, their father or mother's slice of what would have been the estate. Point 6, if there are no spouse, no civil partnership, no children or grandchildren, then it can be left to parents, grandparents, uncles and aunts, or half uncles and aunts, in that order. That's how it works. And then they'll get an equal share depending on who's surviving and who isn't. If none of this exists, the rules above, and the deceased dies without any family at all, the terminology uses bona vacantia, which basically means that the money goes to the Crown.